오늘은 특별히 우리 군 사명자가 독일, 미국으로 군 선교사로 파송되기도 합니다.
Today especially we have a very special ceremony where we will have a commissioning of military missions officers to Germany as well as to the United States.
무엇을 알고 가지고 가야 되겠냐 하는 거죠.
So on their way out, what is it that they must keep in mind?
또 성도님들 가운데 나와 우리 가족 중에 이렇게 큰 병이 들었는데 어떻게 하면 좋겠냐 하는 생각도 있을 겁니다.
And perhaps among us there are some people who are saying, I'm a little bit sick, or there's a family member who has an illness. How can we overcome this?
어떻게 하면 좋겠는지 오늘 본문에 나와 있습니다.
And in today's passage, we see exactly what it is that we must do.
특히 오래된 우리 신자분들 나의 그 남은 생을 어떻게 하는 것이 가장 좋을 것인가 하는 겁니다.
And especially for all the believers who have lived their walk of faith for a very long time, how must we live the remainder of our walk of faith in our lives?
오늘 본문 배경을 조금 확인을 해보면 예수님이 많은 사람이 따르니까 병자도 고치고 이렇게 했습니다.
And we must first look at the context of today's scripture reading. We see that Jesus went and he healed countless many people and healed the sick.
피곤해서 좀 쉬려고 하는데 어떤 여자가 찾아온 거예요.
And he was very fatigued, and so he wanted to take a little bit of a rest. But there was a woman who came to seek him out.
우리 어린 딸이 귀신 들렸는데 고쳐달라 이렇게 부탁을 합니다.
And this woman requests of him that her little daughter has an unclean spirit in her.
그들은 오라고 하니까 초청도 안 했는데 소문을 듣고 와서 그렇게 간절히 부탁을 합니다.
So she ardently asks and requests of Jesus that he heal her, even though she had not been invited. She had just heard the rumor and the news that he
이
was there.
사람이 수로보니게라고 하는 지방에서 온 사람인데 정통 유대인이 아닌 그런 사람이었습니다.
And so she was a Syrophoenician. In other words, she was not a traditional Jew.
예수님이 이렇게 말씀하셨어요.
And this is what Jesus says to
굉장히
her.
모욕적인 말이죠.
Perhaps it was very offensive.
아니 누가 음식을 떡을 개에게 주겠냐 이랬다니까요.
He says, who would take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs?
그러니까 이 여자가 하는 말이 개도 주인의 아이들을 먹는 상에서 떨어지는 부스러기 먹지 않습니까? 이렇게 얘기했어요.
But she answers him saying, yes, Lord, and yet even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs.
그 예수님이 좀 깜짝 놀랐겠죠.
And I think Jesus was taken aback by these words.
그래서 그럼 내 딸을 고쳐주겠다 그렇게 하신 겁니다.
And then he acquiesces and tells her that he will heal her daughter.
그래서 가보라고 했습니다.
And then he says, go.
가면 내 딸은 나아 있을 것이다. 그렇게 예수님이 말씀하셨어요.
Jesus says to her, go and you will find that the demon has left your daughter.
그 귀신이 네 딸에게서 나갔느니라 그렇게 말씀하셨습니다.
He says, you will find that the demon has already left.
정말 와보니까 나은 상태가 되어 있었습니다.
And she came home and she in fact saw that the child did not have the spirit, that unclean spirit in her anymore.
자, 이런 병자들 많습니다. 어떻게 해야 될 겁니까?
There are so many people who are sick this way. What is it that we must do for them?
먼저 그 두 가지를 아셔야 됩니다.
First, there are two things you must know.
그 하나는 뭔가 하니까 성경에만 있는 얘기인데요. 지금도 일어나고 있는 고통입니다.
First and foremost, this is only recorded in the Bible. But there is a form of suffering that exists even to this very
성경에
day.
사건이 세 개 생겼어요.
There are three incidents that arose in the Bible.
에덴 동산 사건입니다.
The first is the incident of the Garden of Eden.
거기에서 이 사단이 아담 하와를 유혹해서 하나님 떠나게 만들어 버린 거예요.
There, Satan tempted Adam and Eve and drove them away from God.
그때부터 고통이 오기 시작했어요.
And from that point on, so much anguish and suffering entered.
두 번째 사건이 노아 홍수 사건입니다.
The second incident was the incident of Noah's flood.
그때의 많은 사람들은 이미 네피림이란 말은 진짜 성경에만 얘기하지 지금 미국에 완전히 접신되어 있는 사람과 똑같은 이런 시대가 온 겁니다.
And that was an age of the Nephilim. The Nephilim, many people are not aware of this, but it's just like the contemporary day today, where there are groups in the United States where they continue to invoke the evil spirits and they're demon possessed. It's just like that same state.
그 세 번째 사건이 바벨탑 사건이에요.
And the third incident was the incident of the Tower of Babel.
하나님 안 믿겠다가 아니고 하나님께 도전하는 사람이
So they're
많이
no
생긴
longer
겁니다.
refusing to believe in God. Now they're actually rising up to challenge God.
하나님께 도전한다니까요.
They are challenging God.
그것도 한두 명이 그러면 저 사람 미쳤구나 그러면 되는데 대부분의 사람들이 막 도전하는 거죠.
And if it was just one or two people, we would just deem them as being insane. But it was great groups of people that arose to challenge God.
그래서 하나님이 바벨탑을 무너뜨려 버린 것이죠.
And that's why God fells the Tower of Babel.
그때부터 혼란과 많은 것들이 온 겁니다.
And that wreaks so much confusion going forward.
그래서 그 3장, 6장, 11장 사건, 말하자면 에덴 동산, 노아 홍수, 바벨탑 사건은 지금도 계속되고 있어요.
And that's why we see this repeating even to this very day, this incidents of Genesis 3, 6, and 11, the incident of the Garden of Eden, the flood in Noah's time, and the Tower of Babel.
그래서 하나님 없어도 된다 하는 뉴 에이지 운동이 바로 에덴 동산 사건과 똑같습니다.
And that's why we see that the New Age movement, it stems from the same incident, the same spirit of the Garden of Eden incident, where they're saying there's no need for us to believe in God.
다른 세계가 있다.
They're saying there's a separate realm.
다른 힘을 얻어야 돼.
Receive a separate
매력적인
strength.
얘기죠.
It's all similar to this.
이렇게 해서 접심시키는 네피림 운동이 바로 프리메이슨입니다.
And that Nephilim movement, where they continue to have that evil spirit enter into these people, that's the
지금
Free Age
계속되고
movement.
있습니다.
It continues even today.
아직도 그리스도를 부정하는 단체가 유대인입니다.
And even to this very day, the Jewish people still refute Christ.
이 사람들이 미국과 유럽을 다 잡고 있다니까요.
But they have seized control and power over all of the United States and Europe.
자, 이런 세상 속에 우리 평신도 선교사님이 가야 되고 여러분들이 가야 되는 거예요.
Now it is to this world that all of our lay people missionaries and all of you must head out.
이런 세상 속에 렘넌트들이 가야 됩니다.
And our remnants must now head into that kind of world.
근데 간단한 거는 답은 간단해요.
But the answer is all too simple.
이렇기 때문에 아무도 모르는 고난이 계속 오는 겁니다.
Because of this state, so much suffering, unbeknownst to us, continues to enter.
심지어 딸이 귀신 들려버린 거죠.
We see in today's passage that this woman's
그
young daughter
결과입니다.
is demon possessed. That's simply the result, though.
그래서 아셔야 될 거는 하나님 떠난 모든 인간은 다 문제가 있어요.
And that's what it is that you must be aware of, is the fact that all the people who are separated from God are all filled with problems.
단지 이 집은 귀신 들리는 이 결과로 온 거예요.
It's just simply a difference in terms of the result that we see that's bearing. In this passage, it's just simply that this daughter was demon possessed.
또 어떤 사람은 다른 모양으로 옵니다.
For some other person, it might be a different form, a different result of that same problem.
그 사람들 속고 있습니다. 다 옵니다.
People are deluded and they are deceived.
인간은 하나님을 알아야 되기 때문에 하나님 떠나고 모르면 계속해서 문제가 와요.
We were created to know God, and if we don't know God and we're separated from Him, then these problems continue to come our way.
그것만 도와주면 돼요.
We simply need to help the people address that issue.
군선교사로 가서 군 복무해야지 전도로 다닐 겁니까? 아니잖아요. 그러나 자세히 보면 있어요.
Of course, as military missionaries, you can't go around evangelizing. You need to carry out your duties in the military, but you must look carefully at this situation.
어떤 사람은 회사에 가서 그랬다 합니까? 쉬는 시간에 성경만 봐도 일부러 사람들 앞에서 이렇게.
For example, I heard of a story where a person who was working at a company, every time they had a little bit of a resting time, a time to take some rest, they would just open up their Bible
쉬는 시간에
and read.
사람 참 괜찮게 생긴 사람이 딱 보니까요 문제 있는 사람이 찾아와요.
And so because he had a very nice appearance, he was always reading the Bible whenever he was taking a little bit of a rest. People who had problems would come and seek out his counsel.
다들 거짓말하고 있거든요. 하나님 떠난 인간은 영적 문제가 올 수밖에 없어요.
Everyone is lying. People who are separated from God have no choice but to experience spiritual problems.
모른 체 하고 있습니다. 계속 심해져요.
And you appear as though you're very nonchalant, that doesn't affect you at all, but it only grows worse with the passage of time.
독일 가보세요. 독일에는 길에서요 그냥 마약한 사람들 줄줄이 있습니다.
If you go to Germany, there are people who are just on the streets and you can tell that they have been using drugs.
잡아가지도 않아요. 왜냐? 그럼 다 잡아가야 되니까 잡아가지도 않아요.
And they're not even incarcerated because there's not enough room in the prison, so they're just left alone.
독일 시내 그렇습니다.
And you see that in the cities of Germany.
그런 정도가 아니고 주사를 가지고 마약을 먹을 정도가 아니에요. 주사를 오는 거예요.
Moreover, they even have and provide the syringes so that they can use the drugs safely.
뭐 마리아나를 피운다 이런 정도가 아니고 주사를.
So it's not even just about smoking the marijuana anymore. They provide these syringes for drug use.
어디다 놓는 거 하니까요. 심장에 가장 빨리 전달될 수 있는 부위다.
And then they take the syringes and they put the drugs into their system closest to their heart so that they can experience that high quickly.
그래서 아침 때 우리나라만 구청이죠. 그래서 주사기 새 거 갖다 준다면 같이 쓰지 말라고.
And so every morning in the provincial offices, the municipal offices, they provide these clean syringes to these people.
전혀 눈보기 표시 안 납니다. 이런 데다가 우리 렘넌트 보내야 되거든요.
And all these things are happening unseen to the eyes, and this is the field to which we must send our remnants.
뭐 그래서 간단합니다.
But it's still very simple.
그 사람 뭘 도와줄 거냐? 간단해요.
How can we help these people? It's all too simple.
말 안 해도 다 기다리고 있으면 돼요.
Just wait. Even if you don't speak a word, it's all right.
그래서 말만 전달해줘도 역사를 나는 겁니다.
And if you just share this with them, the works will arise.
미국은 조금 더 합니다.
And it's perhaps even worse in
미국은
America.
완전히 지금 미국에서는 자기들도 모이면 걱정해요. 너무 심하게 돼서.
Now there are people in America who are worried about the state of their country.
하나님을 모르는 영적으로 죽은 사람이 절대 행복할 수 없습니다.
People who are separate from God, who are spiritually dead, can never be happy.
그래서 오히려 이 복음을 받게 되면요, 그 어려움이 축복이 되는 거예요.
And that's why once
그렇죠.
they receive the gospel, that difficulty instead becomes a blessing.
그 여자에게는 그 고통이 축복이 돼서 지금까지 전달되고 있어요.
To the woman in today's passage, that suffering became a blessing unto her, and that's being conveyed even to this very day.
자, 어떻게 하면 될 거냐? 그렇죠?
Then how should we go about this?
절대 포기하지 마시고 어떻게 하면 되느냐? 그렇죠?
Do not give up. How is it that we must address this?
오늘 25절에 보면 이 여자가 예수님께 나와서 엎드렸다 이랬어요.
It says in verse 25 of today's passage that this one came before Jesus and fell down at his feet.
자, 그냥 찾아와서 우리 딸 고쳐달라 한 게 아니고 예수님께 나와서 엎드려서 말을 했다.
She didn't just come to him and ask him to heal her daughter. She came before him and knelt before him and fell before his feet.
여러분과 그 사람이 그리스도를 절대 만남을 가지게 되면 반드시 역사를 납니다.
Once you, just like this woman, have that kind of absolute encounter with Christ, all your problems will be solved.
사람 따라 다를 수 있습니다. 절대 만남이 필요합니다.
Of course, it may be different for each person, but we need that kind of absolute encounter, absolute
사람들
meeting.
다 거짓말합니다. 절대 만남이 필요해요.
Everyone is deceiving themselves. We need this kind of absolute meeting with Christ.
제 메시지 스님도 듣고 계시니까 얘기합니다. 절대 당신에게 그리스도 만남이 필요합니다.
And even Buddhist monks are listening to my sermon, but even for you, you need to have this kind of absolute encounter with Christ.
안 그러면 그 고통스러운 수행을 계속해야 돼요.
Otherwise, you will have to continue your course of enlightenment in the midst of so much
답 안
suffering.
나와요.
You will not arrive at the
아니
answer.
귀신 들린 이 아이에게 어떻게 답이 나옵니까?
How can this kind of demon-possessed daughter come to an answer?
그리스도는 이 여자 이전에 벌써 창세기 3장 15절 벌써 있었던 하나님의 이 해결책입니다.
We see that Christ was the answer that was given to us even before this woman even existed in Genesis 3:15. That was God's solution for us.
단지 눈에 보이도록 성육신의 사람의 몸을 입고 왔을 때 이 여자가 만나게 된 거예요.
It's simply a matter
그렇죠?
of fact that once he came incarnate in the form of man, that was when this woman is now able to meet with him.
지금 우리는 예수 이름으로 기도할 수 있는 이유는요. 부활하신 그리스도를 믿는 겁니다.
The reason why today we can pray in the name of Jesus Christ is because we believe in the resurrected Lord.
또 재림주로 서실 예수님 믿는 거예요.
We also believe in Jesus who will come and take his place once again as the Lord of the Advent.
보좌의 주인이 되는 예수님 믿는 거예요.
We believe in Jesus who is the main figure of the throne.
만나게 해 주셔야 됩니다.
The master of the throne. We need to have that kind of meeting with him.
저는 여기 있는 대부분 몇 분 말고는 빼놓고는 제가 나이가 많을 겁니다.
And I think with the exception of just a few people here, I'm probably older in years than most.
그래서 우리 렘넌트보다 장점은 뭐냐? 많은 걸 경험해 봤어요.
So the strength that I have compared to our remnants is that I've had far more life experiences.
그게 많은 경제를 움직이는 재벌들의 속생활도 저는 보게 됐어요.
And I even saw the inner conflict and turmoil, the private lives of these people who are running these multi-billion companies, these conglomerates.
유명한 가수들, 정치인들 보게 됐어요.
I've seen famous politicians and celebrities.
다 어렵습니다.
All of them are hard-pressed.
저는 그래서 가장 제게 먼저 확실한 절대 만남이 일어났어요.
And that's why through that, first and foremost, I had that kind of absolute encounter myself.
그래서 예수 그리스도라는 단어를 성경 처음부터 끝까지 얘기하시구나.
That's when I realized that's the very reason why from the very start to the end of the Bible, God continues to emphasize the message of Jesus Christ
저는
alone.
여기에 확신 왔어요.
And I had great conviction of this.
그때부터입니다. 저는 이제는 솔직히요, 옛날에는 되는 게 없었어요.
It was from that point on that all this began. Honestly, to be frank with you, in the past, nothing happened. Nothing worked for me at all.
다 기준이 불신자 심부름하기 딱 좋을 만큼만 나왔어요.
And the standard of my life at that time was I just was receiving meager answers just to the point where barely I would be used to run the errands of unbelievers.
나는 가는 곳마다 흑암의 종로로 했다니까요.
Wherever I went, I was simply running the errands of the forces of darkness.
진짜입니다.
Really.
제가 이 확신이 딱 오고 난 뒤부터 가보면은 응답이 먼저 와 있어요.
But from the moment that I began to be filled with this confirmation and conviction, wherever I went, the answer was there already before me.
놀랄 일이죠.
How amazing is that?
영적 문제, 우리 가문의 영적 문제들이 다 사라져 버린 거예요.
All the spiritual problems that were filling my family line began to disappear.
특히 우리 가문에 질병, 가난, 무능 이런 것들이요 다 사라져 버린 거죠.
Especially in my family line, we had problems like illnesses, of poverty, and powerlessness. All that began to vanish.
지금 우리 렘넌트들, 우리 많은 성도님들, 우리 군성교사를 가는 분들 걱정할 거 없습니다. 여러분 언약만 잡고 있으면 흑암은 무너지게 되어 있습니다.
All of our remnants, all of our believers,
확실합니다.
all of our military missionaries, there's nothing for you to be worried about. As so far as you hold firmly onto the covenant, wherever you go, the force of darkness will crumble down.
이걸 성도가 확신 안 해요.
It's a sure fact, and yet the believers are
하나님의
not
자녀가
convicted of this. The children of God don't believe it.
내 오죽하면 그랬잖아요. 저 제주도 있는 목사님께 부탁해서 그 정신병자들만 모여 있는 병원 하는 목사님 있어요. 그거 한번 부탁해 보세요.
And so I was so frustrated at this that I said to one of the pastors who's running a psychiatric ward in Jeju Island.
완전히 귀신 들리고요. 완전히 사단에 잡힌 사람들만 모아놓은 게 따로 있어요.
There's a
가보세요.
separate meeting there where just people who are completely demon possessed, people with very severe mental disorders were just brought together there.
그때 가보면 여러분들이 왜 예수가 그리스도인지 알게 됩니다.
So go and visit that place. Go and see for yourself. Once you go and visit that place, you'll realize why it is that it's only Jesus Christ.
이 여자가 나와서 예수님께 엎드린 거예요.
This woman comes and falls at the feet of Jesus.
우리 딸을 살려달라 말이야.
And she pleads with him saying, please heal my daughter.
그러니까 예수님께서 아니 음식을 계획해 주는 사람이 어디 있냐 이랬잖아요.
And Jesus responds saying, what kind of person would throw children's bread to the dogs?
예수님이 건드려 보신 거예요. 그냥 유대인도 그렇게 알고 있으니까요. 유대인들은 다른 이방인들은 개라 그렇게 알고 있단 말이에요.
He provokes her because he wanted to see what she would respond with, because many of the Jewish people believe this, that the Gentiles were akin to dogs.
유대인도 모르는 확실한 언약을 얘기했어요. 개들도 주인의 상에서 떨어지는 부스러기를 먹지 않습니까?
And yet she responds with the sure covenant even the Jewish people were not even aware of. She says, even the dogs are fed the crumbs of the children under the table of the master.
오늘 정말 여러분 기도해 보세요.
So really today begin this prayer.
정말로 이래서 그리스도구나.
Oh, so
이걸 확인해야 됩니다.
that's why it's only Christ. That's what you must confirm.
안 그러면요 재앙 이기지도 못하고 오는 줄도 몰라요.
Otherwise, you will not be able to overcome disasters. More so than that, you will not even be aware of the fact that they're coming your way.
이거 없앤 제사장.
He is the priest who completely overcame this.
흑암과 사단 못 이겨요.
We cannot overcome the forces of darkness and
이거
Satan.
깨트린 왕.
And he is a king who completely destroyed that.
그리고 말이요 우리 지옥 배경 못 이겨요.
The background of hell, we cannot overcome that.
그걸 알리신 참 선지자.
The true prophet who revealed that fact to us.
그게 그리스도입니다.
He is the Christ.
꼭 이 축복이 있다는 걸 아시고 미국으로 저는 세계로 여러분 현장으로 가시면 돼요.
You must recognize the existence of this answer and go to the fields of the US, to Germany, and to all the fields of the world.
두 번째입니다.
Second point.
어떻게 해야 되느냐는 거죠.
Then what must we do?
아니 예수님께서 그 가봐라 네 딸이 이미 나왔다 귀신 나갔다 그렇게 말씀하셨잖아요.
Jesus says to the woman, go back home and you'll see that the demon has left your daughter.
보통 사람 같으면 아닙니다. 가서 좀 기도해 주십시오. 우리 딸 가서 고쳐 주십시오. 이랬을 거예요.
Most people, I think, would have said, no, please, come with me to meet my daughter and pray for her.
여러분이 하나님의 절대 계획을 알았으면 절대 포기하지 않고 행동할 때 역사가 나요.
If you know the absolute plan of God, the works will begin the moment that you put that into action without any sort of skepticism regarding it.
저는 걱정 하나 있는데요. 하나님의 계획 아닌데 열심히 하는 사람들 많아요. 하나님의 절대 계획이면 포기하지 마라.
There's one concern that I have. It's that there are a lot of people who employ great diligence in things that are not God's plan. But if it's part of God's absolute plan, you must continue to persevere and not give up.
30절에 돌아본 적 딸이 나왔다.
In verse 30 it says, and she went home and found the demon had left the child.
하나님의 절대 계획을 깨달았을 때 그때 행동할 때 역사가 나요.
The moment that you
그렇죠?
hold on to God's
믿을
absolute
때
plan
역사가 나요.
and put that into action because you believe, that's when the works will begin.
그리스도를 만남에 능력도 체험해야 되지만은 여러분이 믿을 때 행동할 때 역사가 나요.
And of course you must experience His power when we meet with Christ, but the works will arise once we put that into action.
하나님께서 이스라엘 민족을 홍해로 데리고 간 겁니다.
We see that God leads the Israelites before the Red Sea.
자세히 보라니까요.
Look carefully here.
그들이 믿고 들어갈 때 나눠졌어요.
When they took that step forward in faith, that's when the sea
자세히
parted.
보라니까요.
Look carefully at that passage.
요단 건널 때 요단에 발이 담기니 갈라졌다.
When they crossed the Jordan River, once their foot entered into the water, that's when the river parted.
여리고 돌 때 무너진 거예요.
What about the walls of Jericho? The moment that they began their steps to go
뭡니까?
around that wall, that's when it crumbled down.
하나님의 절대 계획이면 여러분이 행동할 때 역사 시작돼요.
In other words, if it is God's absolute plan, once you put that into action, that's when God's works
그게
will
두 번째
begin.
원리입니다. 절대 포기하지 마라.
That's a second principle. Never give up.
모욕적인 말씀을 했다니까요. 포기하지 않았어요. 개도 자녀의 상에서 떨어지는 부스러기 먹지 않습니까?
Jesus speaks offensive words to this woman, and yet she does not give up. She perseveres and she responds, saying that the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs.
가보라고 했습니다.
And he tells her to go.
마지막 세 번째입니다.
The last, third point.
그 언약 깨달은 절대 제자 여러분 한 명이 다른 사람 살릴 수 있어요.
This one person, absolute witness, the absolute disciple, each and every one of you, you can go
그렇죠.
out and save others.
이게 중요합니다.
That's
여러분
important.
한 명이 다른 사람을 살릴 수 있어요.
You, one person is more than enough to save others.
더 중요한 거는 같이 있지도 않았는데 역사가 났어요.
What's even more important is that these works were manifested even though he was not on the scene.
이 여자의 믿음으로 예수님이 축복하셨는데 딸은 저 집에 있는 데 나왔다니까요.
Jesus gave his blessing because of the faith of this woman, but the daughter who was elsewhere was healed.
부모님의 믿음이 자녀를 치유할 수 있습니다.
The faith of the parents can heal your children.
저는 여러분 들어보셨겠습니다만은 저를 아는 사람 옛날부터 저를 아는 사람이 있어요. 동네 사람들이 있을 거 아니에요.
There are people from my neighborhood long time ago who knew me when I was a child.
저를 보고 놀랐어요.
They're shocked when they see me.
저는 어릴 때는 정말로 착하게 자랐거든요.
When I was young, I grew up very good-natured.
그런데 이게 말이요. 이상하게 너무 어림이 와가지고 내가 믿음이 없으니까 무너진 거예요.
And that was when I was very young, when I was a child. But because so many difficult circumstances came my way and I didn't have faith, I continued to take missteps in my life.
제가 무너지니까 오만 나쁜 짓을 다 하는 거예요.
And once I found myself in shambles, I just began to carry out these works, many bad things.
이거는 내가 해야 될 일이 아니다. 알면서도요.
Even though I knew that I shouldn't be committing these kinds of acts, I continued to take part in that.
완전히 무너졌는데 우리 어머님의 기도.
I completely crumbled down, and yet through the prayer of my mother,
정말로 우리는요. 이 불신자가 보고 야 하나님 살아계신다 이랬잖아요.
through the prayers of my mother, even unbelievers saw our household and said, God really does exist.
주의 종들 한 명의 기도가 많은 성도를 살릴 수 있다.
The prayers of one servant of the Lord can save multitudes of believers.
이게 기도입니다.
That's prayer.
복음 가진 자의 기도. 기도를 아는 사람은요 두려워하지 않아요. 반드시 역사하게 되어 있습니다.
That is a prayer of those who possess the gospel. People who know the mystery of prayer, they're not afraid because they understand the power of that prayer.
중직자 여러분 한 분이 가진 믿음이 반드시 현장 살려요.
That faith that one church officer possesses can absolutely save the field.
여기 우리 세 가족 앉아 계십니까? 세 가족 여러분 한 명의 믿음이 반드시 가문 살려.
Do we have new believers here? Your faith alone, with that alone, you can save your entire household.
렘넌트 한 명이 그 믿음이 세계 살린다니까요.
And the faith of one remnant, a single remnant, can save the world.
예, 막 그렇게도 우리 집안에 우상 숭배 이랬는데 우리 어머니하고 우리 외삼촌 두 사람 믿음이 온 집을 복음하고.
There was so much idol worship, rampant idol worship in my household, and yet the faith of my mother and my uncle, with that, it was more than enough to change my entire family line.
이 세 가지 가지고 가시면 됩니다.
Just possess and hold on to these three facts with you. With facts.
모든 성도님들 이 세 가지 가지고 가시면 돼요.
And all of our believers just take hold of these three facts.
어떤 면에서는 말할 필요도 없습니다.
In some ways, there's no need to speak two words about it.
그리스도에 대한 절대적인 만남.
It is that absolute meeting with Christ.
하나님의 절대 계획이면 포기하지 말아요. 어떤 경우도 포기하지 말아요.
If it is God's absolute plan, no matter what the case, do not give up.
마지막으로 여러분 한 명이 반드시 살리게 되어 있습니다.
And lastly, you, one person, can save everything.
전에 얘기했잖아요.
I said this before.
참 괜찮게 생긴 분이 아주 깨끗하게 생긴 남자인데 제가 열차 타고 가는데 제 옆에 앉았어요.
There was a person, a man, who was very clean-shaven, and I was sitting on the train, and he happened to sit next to me.
자, 서울서부터 부산까지 가니까 전도를 해야 되겠죠.
And so we were traveling from Seoul all the way to Busan, and so I thought that was a good opportunity for me to share the gospel with him.
내가 아무 말하지 않고 이게 책을 보고 있었어요.
I didn't say a word. I was just reading my book.
책을 보고 또 이렇게 이렇게 메모도 하고 이렇게 했어요.
So I was just reading my book and taking some notes.
이분이 내가 먼저 말을 거는 거예요.
And he first spoke to me.
교수님입니까? 이러다가
He asked
아닙니다.
me,
그래서
"Are you a professor?" And I said, "No, I'm not."
뭐 사업하시는 분입니까? 이렇게 아닙니다.
And then he asked, "Well, are you a businessman?" I said, "No."
공무원입니까? 하더라. 아닙니다.
He said, "Are you a civil servant?" And I said, "No."
이제 목사라는 얘기를 해야 되잖아요.
And so now it's my turn to tell him that I'm a pastor.
제가 이렇게 얘기를 시작했습니다.
So this is how I began the conversation.
제가 이런 사람이었습니다.
I used to be such a character.
근데 그분을 내가 만나고 난 뒤에 이렇게 바뀌었어요.
But after meeting with him, I completely transformed.
나는 전에는 우리 가족을 어떻게 먹여 살릴 수 있는가라고 생각했던 사람입니다.
In the past, I was thoroughly consumed with how to make a living and how to feed my family.
지금은 많은 세계의 많은 제자들 살리고 있습니다.
But right now, I am saving a great number of disciples throughout the world.
나는 전에 내가 왜 살아야 되는지를 몰랐습니다.
In the past, I didn't know why it was that I had to live.
예, 그분 만나고 난 뒤에 알게 됐습니다.
But after meeting with him, I came to realize.
누굽니까 그분이라더라. 글쎄 들어보세요.
And the man, he asked me, "Who is he that you're talking about?" And I
내가
said, "Just
빨리
keep
얘기 안
listening."
했어요.
I kept him waiting.
왜냐? 그래서 내가 자꾸 그분이 누굽니까 물어요. 그래.
So he kept hurrying me. He kept saying, "Well, who is he? Who is he?"
선생님, 제가 미리 얘기하면 당신이 알고 있는 그 가치 없는 판단을 할까 싶어서 내가 빨리 말 안 했다 그래서.
And I said to him, "Sir, I know that you're very familiar with the person I'm speaking of, and so if I were to come out and say it quickly, you would just think of it in a way that was meaningless and insignificant."
그분이 예수 그리스도입니다.
The one I'm speaking of is Jesus Christ.
정말입니다. 저를 변화시켰습니다.
He completely changed me, truly.
사실은 이 복음이 들어와 초기도 우리 한국도 변화시켰어요.
And in fact, once this gospel entered into our country, the Republic of Korea was transformed as
지금
well.
위기는 전 세계 복음 없어져 가고 있어요.
And right now, the greatest crisis is the fact that
교회도 복음 없습니다.
gospel is disappearing from the world. The church has lost the gospel.
교인도 진짜 그리스도를 모르고 있습니다.
And even the believers do not know the genuine Christ.
그래서 아마 선생님이 뭐 하는 분인지 모르겠습니다만은 교회에 대해서 잘못 이해하고 있을 겁니다.
And so, sir, I don't know what you do for your profession. I don't know what you do in your profession, but perhaps you have a misunderstanding regarding the church.
시간표요, 시간표.
But it was time schedule.
이분이요, 마음 딱 열고 진짜 자기 고백하고 그랬어요.
He completely opened his heart to me, and then he made his confession, and he accepted Christ.
어머니도 무당, 시어머니도 무당인데 본인도 무당이야.
And so his mother, the mother, a shaman, the mother-in-law, a shaman, this person, a shaman.
그분이 제게 또 연락 왔어요.
So this woman contacted me.
자기 아이가 지금 죽게 됐는데 마지막으로 진짜 우리가 예수님 믿고 한번 예배 드리고 싶다. 무당집이에요.
This is a completely shaman family, a household, and she contacted me saying that her child is on the verge of death. She wanted to just hear the message of Christ.
저는 그날 이 아이를 싹 보니까요, 좀 보기가 너무 힘든 그런 상태더라고요.
And so that day when I visited and I saw that child, the child was in such a state that I just couldn't, I had to keep turning my eye away.
제가 지금 체험한 걸 얘기하는 거예요. 그냥 복음만 전하고 온 거예요.
I'm just sharing with you what I personally experienced. All I did was go there and share the gospel and come back.
웬일입니까?
How can this be?
그날 밤에 그 아이에게 역사를 난 거. 나는 복음만 전하고 왔다. 기도 이런 거 안 했어요. 복음만 전하고 왔어.
That very night, works arose for that child. I didn't pray for that child. All I did was go and share the gospel and come back home.
엄청난 이 집은 영적 문제가 많은 집이냐. 그리스도 증거되는 순간에 역사를 난 거예요.
There were so many spiritual problems in this household. The moment that Christ was proclaimed, the works happened immediately.
저도 놀랐습니다.
Even I was taken aback.
아니 그렇게 사람이 조금씩 나야지 갑자기 나.
I expected the person to just get better and recover progressively, not all of a sudden like that.
아니 병원에서 죽는다고 한 아이인데 그래도 좀 이제 좋아져서 애가 이제 괜찮았다 이러면 모르겠는데 그날 밤에 나와버렸어요.
This child, the doctors had told the mother that this child was on the verge of death, that there was no way for this child to be saved. But it's not even that he recovered slowly. He just all of a sudden got better that very night.
저 옛날에 막 그런 체험들 하게 된 거예요.
I had these kinds of experiences in the past.
그래서 그리스도. 그러니까 그리스도는 답 얻고부터는 그때부터는 응답 계속 왔어요.
And through that I realized, that's right, the Christ. From that moment that I came to that conclusion, from that point on, answers continue to come.
그러면 단지 어느 정도인가 하니까 막 여러분 말고 여러분 같은 사람 볼 때 좀 불쌍하다 이런 생각이 들 때가 많아요.
And so because
왜 저래 믿지 이런 거예요.
God has given me so many answers, not you, but there are people who are in a different, perhaps in a very similar state. I think to myself that I have great pity on them. Why are they continually remaining in that kind of situation?
아니 신자 끝낼 수 있는데 말이에요. 얼마든지 뭐 이 응답 누리고 다 할 수 있는데 그래서 속고 있는 거죠.
Because you can receive these answers straight away. You can have this kind of enjoyment, but they're deceiving themselves.
오늘 여러분이 이 언약을 딱 잡으셔야 됩니다.
Today you must hold on to this covenant.
펴낼 필요도 없어요.
There doesn't even need to be any sort of visible sign of it.
여러분이 하나님의 자녀라는 놀라운 이 축복을 딱 가지고 있으면 반드시 흑암은 무너지게 돼 있어요.
If you possess this amazing blessing that you are a child of God, absolutely the force of
해보세요.
darkness will crumble down.
마음으로 속지 말고 그냥 해보세요.
So don't be deceived in your heart. Just begin this.
그리고 이게 하나님의 절대 계획이란 답이 나옵니다. 그때는 무조건 도전하라. 포기하면 안 돼요.
And when you arrive at the conclusion that this is God's absolute plan, don't give up. Continue to challenge.
마지막으로 꼭 기억해야 되거든. 여러분 한 명 때문에 반드시 그거는 살게 돼 있어요.
And lastly, what you must constantly remember, through you, one person, your entire field will be revived.
뭐 그렇습니까? 근데 한 명 때문에 우리 어머니 한 명 믿으니까 온 집안이 복음화 돼요.
Perhaps you might question this, but for me, in my household, with the faith of my mother, just her single faith, my entire household was saved.
여러분이 가 있는 곳에는 눈에 보이지 않게 영적 세계가 이루어지는 겁니다.
And wherever you are in that location, in that place, unseen to the eyes, a spiritual
꼭
realm is at
기억하세요.
work. So you must have
이 언약
this.
붙잡고 오늘 하루만 기도해도요. 아니 예배 마치고 5분만 기도해도 역사가 납니다.
Hold on to this covenant and just pray today. No, perhaps just pray 5 minutes after this worship. The works will absolutely arise.
이번 주간에 이 체험이 일어나기를 주 예수 이름으로 축복합니다.
I bless you in the name of Lord Jesus Christ that this week you may experience this blessing.
기도하겠습니다.
Let's pray.
하나님, 오늘 하나님의 자녀된 비밀을 회복할 수 있도록 축복해 주옵소서.
God, would you bless us today so that we restore the blessing of being your children?
너희는 세상의 빛이라고 하신 것처럼 이 빛이 전설되도록 하나님이 인도해 주옵소서.
Lord, you have shared with us that we are the light of the world. Would you work upon us so that we can now convey and shine this light to the world?
많은 렘넌트들이 현장으로 갑니다.
There are many remnants heading out into the field.
속지 않고 빛을 전달하는 흑암 이기는 자 되게 해 주옵소서.
May they not be deceived. May they be the ones to overcome the forces of darkness as they shine this light.
많은 성도님들이 현장으로 갑니다.
Many believers are heading into the field.
이 역사가 일어나게 해 주옵소서.
May these works arise for them.
귀한 가정이 독일로 미국으로 파송됩니다.
We have precious families who are now heading to the fields of Germany and to the United States.
하나님의 놀라운 빛이 전달되게 하옵소서.
May your amazing and astonishing light be conveyed to them.
예수 그리스도 이름으로 기도하옵나이다.
In Jesus Christ's name we pray.
아멘.
Amen.